Drilling fluids touch just about everything in the drilling process. We're here to deconstruct the drilling process and drilling fluid concepts to provide a deeper understanding of our industry. In each episode, we'll share information, talk to interesting people, and maybe share a few stories along the way. Welcome to the Flowline, a production of AES Drilling Fluids, brought to you by Matt Offenbacher and Justin Gauthier.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of You Know It, the Flowline. Matt and I here, another beautiful day in the studio. Matt, tell us something good, man. What's the latest and greatest? Anything?
I don't know. It's summer, like it's
That
really
it
here,
is.
which means both heat, but also the sort of like a lot more time of just enjoying being outside and kids running around and
Yeah.
for me, of course, summer baseball and let's see what else. I don't know. Even I would say like the work vibe gets a little more relaxed just because people are on vacation. They've had some rest.
Yeah.
Maybe they're a little less agitated.
Yeah. No, and I would agree with that. And it's not because we take our foot off the gas, but just operators and typically, if you're a family, and which a lot of our customers are, folks with families, they take time off, and so there's not a lot of people in the office. And when you're trying to line things up, it's like, well, next week so and so's out, so why don't we push it back till the other week? And so just naturally, the intensity of meeting and dealing with things is kind of slows down, just because it's the pace of our customers as well. But nonetheless, it is the season of holidays and this and that, and it's also the season of I'm going to shift into softball College World Series.
Yes.
Matt, Texas Tech and UT. I don't know if you care about softball, but being that you're a UT grad, I would assume you appreciate the Texas battle that's about to endure this week.
I mean, it's always pretty fun. There's obviously some, I don't know what you call it. Controversy maybe isn't the right word per se with Tech, because they've invested a lot of money. It's they've this NIL thing and all that, but they're very intent on getting there.
Yeah.
And so, I just hope it's a really good competition. I mean, summer, it's so interesting. Like, college is out of session, but like College World Series and softball, like in softball, which I don't watch a ton, but when it's kind of like other sports where it's like, well, when it gets to the playoffs, it's really fun. Like, there's storylines all around it you can engage with. Maybe it's just easier to follow because there's fewer teams.
Yeah.
And so there's something even fun about that. And I mean, hey, were you going to try and go to some games, or you went to some games already?
So we're leaving tomorrow.
Okay.
To go to Norman, and we've got game 2 of the championship. We'd booked the tickets, a couple months ago. My daughter's wanted to go for a long time. And she's a huge Texas Tech fan, mainly because of Jerry Kennedy. She got wind of this, college softball player that, made money, and she was like, "Oh, you can do that." And anyway, she just kind of fell in love with the Texas Tech thing. But she's also a UT fan for softball as well.
Good.
No. Yeah, right?
I'm relieved.
But with that being said, we're going tomorrow. We're going to game 2, so we'll either see, it'll be 1-1, or we'll get to see someone win the World Series. And so, it's softball's being in our house, but baseball is too. But my son hasn't really fallen in love with college baseball yet. He's more of which is funny. If you ask him his 2 favorite teams, it's the Astros and the Dodgers. So, yeah.
A lot of people have a hard time saying that in the same sentence.
But it's mainly because of MLB The Show on PlayStation.
Yes,
He
okay.
loves using the Dodgers because, pretty much out of the lineup, like 6 of them hit home runs.
It's all juiced, yeah.
Yeah, and then it's Astros, and he's seen
team,
him play,
yeah.
and home team, and everyone, so it's one of those just funny things. He loves Mookie Betts. He's one of his favorite players. And so anyway, all that being said, it's a good time of year.
You know how to fall
fun.
in love with college baseball? Get on YouTube and show them all the videos of, like, during rain delays and stuff, what the players do.
Oh.
In the dugout or in the bullpen.
Yeah.
There's always sort of goofy antics while they're, the reporters interviewing them. Like,
No, okay.
There's a lot of silly stuff, and I think,
Yeah.
that'll get it to be like, okay, college is a little different.
Nice.
So
It'll
start there.
Okay. No, we'll definitely look at that. He's Anyway, it's a good time of year. Summer's here. Football's around the corner. I was talking to someone actually at the barber shop, and the guy cutting my hair, I was like, man, I can't wait for football. And so, yeah, good time of year, as always. But with that being said, let's move on to the drilling world. That's what we like to really focus in on here. And Matt, interesting topic today. I'm going to let you unpack the topic today, and just kind of why we're sitting here discussing something we've had to discuss multiple times.
Yes, I mean, we've covered this topic. We're covering it now, and I don't believe this will be the last time, but there are a lot of foolish things directional companies are doing when it comes to mud. We're getting called into conversations that are kind of in the realm of the absurd, and, we are continually trying to educate. We're trying to correct the record. And, there's a few things like, look, nobody's perfect. I get that. But the finger-pointing stuff doesn't make anybody any better off. When it comes to tool life and tool reliability, when we can be truthful about what's happening, perhaps that can lead to better tool design instead of just making things up and trying to move on, because we are drilling longer and longer laterals, which means the cost of a trip, the duration it takes to get out of the hole, is going up and up and up.
Yeah.
Staying on bottom has always been a huge economic driver, regardless of the tool cost and everything else, just the trip. But now, add another mile.
Yeah.
We're getting where this stuff is ultimately a huge, huge deal, and the tool has to last more hours. So instead of just pointing the finger at this, that, or the other, let's get them working, and saying ridiculous things about drilling fluid to get out of responsibility doesn't actually solve the problem. It buys time.
Right.
I get why you would do it, but it's one of these, it's just very exhausting to continue to have to defend ourselves, go into meetings, try and rebuild trust based upon unfounded accusations. Or at the very least, if you think something's wrong, put it in the form of a question, not in the form of a gotcha.
Right.
And so, like I said, like our field people, like it's bread on the table for them, right? Us keeping a rig means somebody's getting a paycheck there. We are too, obviously.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, putting these people's jobs at risk by saying that they have not done, by claiming that they have done something they have not done, or you do not have credible evidence to suggest that they have been irresponsible, gets me a little upset.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, so how do you, why do you think it is that, why have we had to deal with the same pattern for years and years and years? Because this conversation has not just been one that's popped up recently, right? Like directional companies or directional tools, it's mechanical, things fail. This happened for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems like we can't ever get to the point of like collaborating and like working together versus just right away playing defense and then saying it's someone else's fault. Like, look at this, without, like you said, credible evidence. Why is that? Like, why do you think we haven't gotten to a spot where we can better collaborate?
I don't know. Directional companies, especially the people developing the tools, tend to be, they make more money than we do. And so you'd think they'd have a better R&D budget. You'd think that, some of them are big companies that have a mud company too, where they could say, hey, like, is this realistic?
Mm-hmm.
And having been in an organization like that in the past, it was always directional makes way more money. Like, you guys need to just take the fall for this. But I think that goes with even a company that is supposedly integrated is not integrated. It's, people have turf, there's silos, that kind of thing. And then I think just, the broader philosophy in unconventional is like, we move fast, do it over and over and over and over again. And so there's a lot of, look, if I just like throw some rocks at somebody else, this all, we'll get distracted by starting the next well. By the time any real work can be done, and we'll just pass it off as an oil-filled mystery.
Yeah.
And like kind of move on with our lives and assign randomness to this.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunate because there is this great opportunity to say like, no, there's a failure mode here that we're looking at. And I think this is, what I believe I am starting to see is as we drill longer laterals in particular, we're seeing more casing wear. We're seeing more metal get in the drilling fluids, just, bits of it. We're running more sensitive tools. And so you're seeing the greater potential for failure that at 3 miles you didn't see, but at 5 you do.
Yeah.
And there's an opportunity to address that, or there's an opportunity to pretend it's not a problem, blame some folks, and move on. And that only works for a while, as we've seen in the past. These repeat or chronic tool failures ultimately get people run off. So let's figure it out and fix it.
Yeah.
We have an interest in staying on bottom, as do directional companies.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We don't make money while we trip. We
Yeah.
make money while we're drilling and treating the fluid.
Yeah.
So, and it's interesting because of this dynamic that we fall into, there's actually companies that make money on the back of this, i.e. third-party labs. And they don't only do, try and work with directional companies to gotcha, but a lot of, I would imagine, third-party labs spend a lot of time trying to diagnose what they think is wrong with mud. So let's talk about how third-party labs sort of enter this story.
Well, look, it's fair, okay? There's a lot of we have to acknowledge the pressure on the fluid side of. I remember being out on a rig and do my retort analysis, and I was under tremendous pressure from the drilling consultant to say, you can't write that we have 9% low gravity solids. It's like, well, that's what it is. Don't submit a report with that on it, and I had to call my account manager and, hey, what do I do about it? Like, if there's that kind of pressure out there from the operator's field people to push people to be less than truthful, what happens when something breaks? Let's take it a step further of just, a lot of the stuff that directional companies do when they say things about mud is that they don't know anything, and so they just sort of repeat things they've heard before. And so, hey, let me go get a mud sample and get it back checked to make sure that it's not, an obvious drilling fluid issue. Well, they pull a sample from the possum milling because that's where the mud comes out. Or, we've talked about it before. Like, hey, if you're going to get a sample and back check me, let's just all get a sample at the same time. I'll send one to my lab. You send one to whoever you want to do.
Yeah.
But we have found, there are some very unqualified third-party labs. Some of them simply just, hey, I've got a mud kit. When you ask, I'll go open up the test procedure and for the first time in, months, do one. And whatever I get, I'll just submit.
Yeah.
And it's gotcha. Sometimes it's actually the numbers are similar, but the assumptions of base oil specific gravity don't match. And it's gotcha. And it's like, well, no, look, if we back out our calculations, everything's the same.
Yeah.
There's a lab out there that, frankly, their reporting's just terrible. They don't label anything correctly. They run, they run X-ray fluorescence and do this mental gymnastics with a 4-watt little gun, claiming all of this. We're looking at the barite composition and the amount of quartz, and it's sort of absurd. And their numbers don't actually work. They're not. It's just but they're very good at insinuating that every mud they test is problematic in some way, by saying, it could be more abrasive because we saw some quartz. It's like, look, buddy, you saw silica. Silica is it's in quartz, but it's in a lot of other things like clay.
No.
And so it's very frustrating because, of course the directional companies love it, but because the reports are so poorly put together, I'm surprised nobody's taking these guys to court or whatever. It's disparagement as far as I'm concerned. Then if you're going to do that, okay, well, those are pretty easy to tear to shreds. And honestly, I think most operators, even those that don't understand drilling fluids very well, can smell something is off.
Yeah.
But all that being said, there's a number of things where it's just getting the right sample, following the protocols, having experience running it.
Yeah.
Those things, and then even like depending on what the operator wants to do, saying, hey, look, before we present this information to you, acknowledging that this is an independent lab and we don't want undue influence, can we at least compare notes? And by that I mean like, hey, we ran a couple of checks here. Here's the number we're getting. It's not going to match exactly. No. There is natural variability in these things. They should be in the same neighborhood, but if they say, well, we got a 12-pound mud weight, and it's like, well, I got a 10.5. Like, we're way off.
Yeah.
Did you mix the sample? Oh, I haven't done that in a long time. Or, oh, I kept it in the fridge. It's really cold. Just there's all kinds of other things that aren't necessarily written down that people don't understand are dangerous assumptions.
Yeah. No, because all mud checks are not created equal.
No.
It's kind of like when you're doing any lab work, the control group has to be the same, right? You can't have varying. You can't do the same test with varying, with different variables and expect to have results that would match anyway. Yeah,
I mean, you need calibrated equipment, but if you look at significant figures, even with, we have the variability of when you're calling your endpoint on your chloride titration. We have, how you take your mud weight and how your initial mud weight, and even looking at the bottom of a meniscus. There's going to be a kind of plus or minus one error in a bunch of those things. And if you ran a Monte Carlo simulation, distribution curve of every single one of those inputs and put the min and the max, that you would still be theoretically accurate, then you'd see a fairly healthy error bar there.
Yeah.
And so we acknowledge that, but look, if somebody comes with 20% low gravs and you got 12, like that's probably an issue.
Yeah.
Right. So like let's get all that right. I'm not afraid of a third party lab. We're an open book. Let's just make sure we use the right one and that they're equipped to do the job.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. Made up chemical phenomena. This is funny because you do have folks that will claim to be chemists and will come at whatever, not even just us, but in general. I don't know, maybe it's like Instagram chemistry. I don't know.
I mean, it's just sort of weird that this stuff doesn't get more scrutiny. We had one earlier in the week where it was, well, we detected something in the tool that was really hot, and so we think you mixed calcium chloride too fast, and it got up to like 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And it's like, well, the kinetics of that are just not possible. Good luck getting it above 180. Then we found out it was oil-based mud, and it was like, this isn't even possible. And then it went from that to it generated an acid, which, once again, we're in an oil continuous environment. Like, there's no acid to be exposed. You have to water wet everything for the acid to react.
Yeah.
And so it's just one of these. But because the Directional company said it, somehow this is a credible argument that we have to defend. That's very frustrating. A number of these where, hey, we've decided that your drilling fluid is messing with our chrome rotors, or and it's like, okay, we've decided, but how?
Yeah.
Tell me more. And that sort of dives into just blaming materials. I mean, number of sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say, yeah. When we talk about materials, there's always you can almost guarantee that there's always at least gonna be either barite, graphite, gilsonite. Like, there's always the common ones that just when they open up tools, like all of a sudden there's just an abundance of this material that they just claim to be the problem, which it's like those have been in our muds for decades.
Yeah, well, I mean, the barite one. First off, when we talk about some of these materials that get blamed, if this was the case, and many people are getting their materials from the same source, then why are these failures not happening everywhere? Like gilsonite, aka uintite, which is the gilsonite is a trade name, but uintite comes from the Uinta Basin. There's only one person that provides it. So why isn't every rig, all the 500 rigs in the U.S. having Like, why aren't they having this problem? So, like, let's start, but Bayrite is the most, there's Bayrite in the tool. Well, Bayrite touches everything. Like, just because you detect, there was Bayrite packed off in the tool. My favorite one is, especially with some of these RSS, where they're like, hey, just keep pumping a bunch of base oil. And then on the trip out, they're like, there's a bunch of Bayrite on the tool. It's like, well, you made us pump like 18 30-barrel sweeps of diesel, which cut all our viscosity. Yeah. And so you had Bayrite settle out on top of the tool. It wasn't the Bayrite that failed the tool. It was all the other crap that, whatever else was jamming it up. But, like, you induced that as you were coming out of the hole. It has nothing to do with this.
Yeah.
Is there bad Bayrite out there? Yes, because we fight, like I'll get out to make sure we get the right kind. But is it that common? The big providers QC pretty aggressively. It's the people who are buying shady stuff off the back of a truck, the questionable minds. Like, that's where you're going to get this stuff. Yeah. It doesn't happen often, and it's pretty easy to tell. So, like, it's going to be more than just, like, someone decided it, and that goes from, the color. For all of these dry materials, I ran a magnet through it and it stuck, therefore there's magnetic material. Well, guess what? A lot of these things may either have paramagnetic materials or a very slight natural amount of iron. Sometimes there's actually more iron in the clay you're drilling through than in the Bayrite you're using. And guess what? We don't have tools failing all the time. What it is like, one, you can induce magnetism. Say you can magnetize a nail by putting a high-powered magnet in its presence. The other is just straight up, there might be a little bit in there, but it takes a heck of a lot of magnetic energy to draw that in. Yeah. They're very fine particles. Pretending like that's a gotcha moment. But more commonly, what we see with it's magnetic, normally it's I took the little stir bar from the... What it is you did it with your bare hands. So the oils on your skin got all over the magnet, and then you ran it through a sack of graphite, and gotcha. And what it was, hey, we can't replicate this, and all it was the oils on your skin made it sticky and caused graphite to stick to the stir bar. Like, thank you for inciting a crisis because you don't know how to test a sample. And like, if you're that worried, like, let's all do it together. Like, you don't need to do it in the dark of night and then be like, aha. Yeah. If there's a problem with the product, let's talk about it. We have a whole QC process. We have NCRs we can issue. We want to pull it from anywhere else if that was really the case. Yeah. But once again, if you're on tens of rigs using many of these similar products and it's only happening on your rig, is it magically that sack of product or is it possibly you?
Right.
So, anyways, so there's other materials that fall under that blame, but failing to test for compatibility is another one that eats at me. Yeah. And I normally, this is a lot of things, but elastomers in particular. What's the aniline point of your base fluid? Blah 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 blah. Well, you know what? Some tools are actually designed with the intent that they swell, and their tolerances, particularly O-rings, are based on the idea that they swell. And then you switch base oils to something that that has a much higher aniline point. It doesn't swell, and the O-ring gets bypassed and washed out. But these are knowable things before the job starts. Like, it's not just run the tool the same way every single time and get the same results. Right. These are conversations to be had ahead of time. But most tool companies should have somebody who understands elastomers, or at least can Google it. Which is probably another terrifying thing with the age of AI and directional companies trying to point fingers. Right. Yeah. And that ties into like the stuff we do know. The number of times where it's like, well, what are you going to do with your sodium chloride brine to address our rotors corroding? And it's like, well, chlorides and chrome don't play nice. I mean, we've done our own podcast episode on that. That's an industry-known thing. I remember, like, we were getting hammered by one customer, and it was just, like, glass of scotch talking to my dad, who's been a directional guy for forever, and he's like, everybody knows that. Yeah. And it's just one of these, like, well, then why is it, what is wrong with it? And it's brine. I don't even have anything in it. Yeah. I got a lubricant. what are you going to do about this? Well, it goes back to like, hey, tool company, what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
Because this is the environment we've chosen. We either have to change the environment or you have to change the equipment. And there are options for both, with drawbacks and like the operator has to weigh the costs and benefits.
Right.
So, as my rant continues,
Yeah, let's keep rolling. This is good.
failure to ensure your own tool reliability. So there's a lot of, particularly with RSS applications, where some say, oh, throw some ditch magnets in there and like check SOP. But what we're seeing a lot of is the magnets you use to clean the fluid need to have a stronger magnetic field than the tool has.
Yeah.
And what we're seeing is, the ditch magnets didn't really pick up much. And then you use high-powered magnets, and all of a sudden you're picking up 100 pounds a day of casing wear. And it's like, well, that's either getting in your tool where that magnet lies, but the ditch magnets aren't getting it. There's still material that could be harmful there.
Yeah.
And these are relatively inexpensive things that, one RSS provider in particular, we always do. I could tell you how the tool was going to fail. I mean, over the phone, I could tell you, before we ran XRF, I could tell them what the readout was going to be and what the likely amount of molybdenum and tungsten and other things were going to be from inside the tool, and then relatively what you pulled from a magnet. Because I knew how the tool came apart, from this type of exposure. And the tool provider, all they had to do was say, hey, use a magnet that is stronger than what we have downhole to keep our tool life extended. And never took an interest in these magnet providers that could do that.
Yeah.
So, I think there's an opportunity there. The other one, pretending low gravity solids are all the same. Anybody drilled an Eagleford well? I mean, they'll let their low gravs go up crazy high, and they don't have any issues, right? But what they do have is they have pretty soft material that is in their low gravity solids.
Yeah.
If you're drilling a neat sandstone, it's a different conversation. Not all low gravity solids are necessarily created equal. So understanding the formations you're drilling through, not just, we ran a mud check and your low gravity solids were 2% higher than what, we recommend. It's like, well, that's fine and all, but guess what? We have data analytics, and we know when you run these tools other places where another operator says 10% is fine.
Yeah.
And we don't have any issues. So what is it? Other than an attempt to say, gotcha, it's the mud's fault. Let's be realistic.
Yeah.
And then kind of wrapping up, we talk about tool plugging is, we can do a lot better if we could have better conversations about LCM and what it's made of. Because not all LCM is the same. There's no need to get into like some proprietary blend to break this down, but
Right.
All the time we see, well, you can do 20 pounds per barrel of nut plug fine.
Right.
Like, well, what relative to what? Like, there's no definition per se of fine, medium, coarse. So, like, give me some micron sizes. Particularly a granular particle that's pretty easy to measure. The other one, I've talked to some people who are far more savvy on extending tool life, and they've said, the challenge with LCM is people will put these, you can only pump 20 pounds per barrel or 30 pounds per barrel or whatever. They said, really, a lot of this just comes down to mixing. And a lot of the failures, you can't be at the hopper 24/7. You need trained personnel who understand that you can't just heap a sack in and pump it away. That behavior alone can cause a tool to plug regardless of what the LCM size is.
Yeah.
Just the sheer volume of it all at once. The flow rate. So even how hard are you pumping as this LCM passes through the tool? Some folks will use higher flow rate tools because they don't pack off as readily.
Right.
You can push stuff through more readily. Same thing with, concentration. It'll say 5 pounds per barrel of cal carb or whatever. But concentration is sort of a relative subject depending on what else is already in the mud. So you can pump, 20 pounds per barrel of background material. Okay, fine. Can I do that in 18-pound mud? Is it worse in 9-pound mud? because guess what? Volumetrically, it's a greater constituent of the overall solids. Like you may actually be able to get away with it with higher mud weights, just because it's more dispersed by barite particles. Maybe it's the other way around. But we've looked at trying to evaluate 3D print complex paths to see how LCM wants to pack off.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things. The biggest issue there when we talk to directional companies is everything's proprietary, and they don't want to talk about their flow restrictions.
Right.
And they know them really well. They know their tools pretty well. So like, okay, well, it would really help us have a good understanding. Like this is a great place where we could team up and at least characterize some things.
Yeah.
And so, we talked about doing this. This is like a whole rant worth, and like I could keep going for the sake of everyone's time, or maybe we'll have to have a follow. We will end up having a follow-up of some kind.
Yeah.
But this is kind of the world we're living in right now, and it's kind of frustrating.
It is, and I don't know, Matt. I mean, I maybe speaking, putting the cart before the horse here, but I mean, I would welcome a directional company to challenge or to have a conversation with us. And hell, it would make for a great podcast episode. We don't necessarily have to have the great debate, but it might turn into one. But ultimately, maybe you have to. The hard conversations have to happen before we come up with a solution. Because I'm sure directional companies are sitting in their office without a microphone saying the exact opposite for whatever reason, and so or they're putting themselves they have their own position and they stand strongly behind it, and so. I welcome that, and I think it'd be fun. But if any directional folks out there have any thoughts or, want to challenge any of the stuff that we're sort of saying here today, then I think it'd be good.
We welcome it, and, like, we'll forgive you. No, so there was Justin, you were there. We had a customer, and this sort of, I don't know, finger pointing might not be the right word, but this sort of, like, there's an issue, shaker screen life, blah, 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 and it was sort of like, third-party mud check, a little, and it was ultimately came back to the solids control company and said, look, just like call me. And they're like, we've just never had a mud company willing to play ball. And I was like, look, you guys, we can work together. I have no interest in getting in the solids control business. I have no interest, like, our costs look a lot better when your equipment's performing. Like, this is kind of like win-win for us. And I think maybe there was just some behavior that developed because so many times we just point the finger at each other. And then, we have had some pretty enlightened conversations with some of the motor providers, especially who are, privately held or, don't have ancillary businesses that would arguably compete with us, whatever. It's very free flowing conversation. And it's clear we can learn a lot from each other.
Yeah.
I would just say that, we can do better, and a lot of it is even just, like, let's collaborate a little more.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be, like, a lot of theater. Just, like, call us.
Right.
If you're worried, if you're like, look, I'm seeing this in a few places, like, can you help me out? We might be able to say, hey, look, we've actually seen this somewhere else. Here's how we fixed it.
Yeah.
And it might not have anything to do with the mud, but it may make your tools look a lot better.
Yeah.
So
it's, we live in such a unique world in the upstream oilfield service market because there's so much competition. Everyone is so scared to get ran off. It's so much easier just to point blame with the hopes that you get the next well.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, it's a distraction to hopefully get your stuff together and come up with some paperwork that justifies your position that, we weren't at fault. Hopefully the attention goes elsewhere. And so I don't know if the solution is less competition and more consolidation over time, to where people aren't having to work scared all the time. But in my experience, companies that point fingers more often than not ultimately don't last. Yeah. And it's a revolving door with those who do the finger pointing. Mm-hmm. The ones who can stand up, take accountability, come up with solutions to overcome the problems are the ones that build trust and lasting business with customers.
Yeah,
it's a hard pill to swallow at first, and you might have to get punched in the mouth a couple times, but your customers will respect you for it.
yes. Well, and I mean, at that meeting, I remember cracking some joke as we kind of went around. Where I was like, I'm just glad it's not us this time, know. And look, I get it. I mean, it's tough out there. Like, we understand that part, but like you said, we broker in trust a lot more than anything else.
Yeah.
And so when there's kind of finger pointing and this stuff, I mean, we're far from perfect. We do we do a lot of things right, but we also have ways to establish accountability if there is something that's wrong.
Yeah.
And when we have done something wrong, we want to own up to it quickly, and explain how it's never going to happen again, and do the right things. And if that merits continued work, we appreciate that we have that level of trust. If something were to happen where it's like, hey, I can't keep with you, or whatever, that can happen too. But we're willing to take that risk for a long game.
Yeah.
I'll
say this as we kind of close up. I was talking to a customer with a larger E&P public company, and they've got multiple layers of people looking at lots of different things. And I had asked some key stakeholders, what is your biggest pain point for like oil field service companies? It doesn't necessarily have to be drilling fluids, but their biggest pain point was transparency and accountability and lack of communication when things are wrong. They said, if you can come to us when you believe there's a problem and take accountability and come up with, hey, this is what happened, we're at fault, here's what we're going to do about it. They said that would make things so much better. But their biggest issue with oilfield services was like finger pointing and lack of transparency and accountability.
Yeah.
And they represent a very large chunk of U.S. production. So if any oilfield service companies are listening, maybe that's a good nugget to end with.
Yeah. And look, if you feel like we're hypocrites, let us know, and we'll figure out maybe where we need to clean up our camp a little bit. But
yeah. Well, and we have, and again, one last thing, a taste of our own medicine. I've been involved. You and I were involved with an issue. There was a thing that happened with a product, and lo and behold, we had to take accountability for something that happened. And yeah, it was a rough week, but we're still on the work and have grown the account since then.
Yes.
And so we're not sitting here saying it's never our fault, because we have several cases where, like, yes, we've come to the customer, we've admitted this is what happened. And again, we've become better for it, because we've then had to change our internal processes to make sure that what happened doesn't happen again. And so you can use it as an opportunity to learn. And it's like in sports, our coaches say it all the time. It's not you don't win or lose, you win or you learn. There's never losing.
Yeah.
You're learning to then win the next game, right? Or whatever. So again, I'll close with that, because I want to say I can't sit here and be like, we're never at fault. It's everyone else, because clearly we've been part of that.
No, we have, and to your point, like a lot of it is we have processes to make sure across the board we fix where there was a gap or where we let somebody down, and explaining that and saying here, having everything in place to say here's how it's never going to happen again, here's how it happened, and here's how it's never going to happen again. Those are important pieces to it, and it's what we don't get when we just point fingers, kind of circling all back.
Yeah.
When it's, it must have been the bay right. Guys, go scramble and figure out that we've been using that same bay right on 100 rigs out here. So.
Oh, that's true. Well, look, it's been 40 minutes of fun, Matt. It always is. And for those listening, thank you for tuning in for 40 minutes of your time. If you're driving, hopefully you're driving safe. And if you're walking or doing whatever, listening to the Flowline, we just absolutely appreciate the support. Every time we go out to a public conference or a networking event, people are very positive with the Flowline. And so again, all the listeners out there really appreciate the support. Check us out on LinkedIn. Matt and I personally are on there. You can connect with us, and you can also connect with the AES Fluids page. YouTube, of course, the website has just a plethora of other information on everything we do. And with that being said, everyone, take care, enjoy the summer, stay cool. Until next time, cheers.
Take care.
Thanks for listening. Please tune in next week for another exciting episode of the Flowline. And remember, may your returns always be full and your trips always smooth. Views expressed in this program belong to participants and not their employees. The program is for informational purposes only and cannot take the place of seeking professional advice. Copyright AES Drilling Fluids.